Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on antonyms. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. We're doing grade 4. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of antonyms. All right. So when it comes to antonyms, right? Or before we go on, antonyms, the chapter is antonyms. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade 4. And then the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of antonyms is to choose the antonym. And we also need to say which sentence uses an antonym. All right. So when it comes to antonyms, right? An antonym or antonyms, it's words with opposite meaning. So it's words with the opposite meaning. That's antonyms. In our previous lesson, we did synonyms, and synonyms are words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning. But now today we have antonyms, and antonyms are words with the opposite meanings. For example, big. Big and little. So the opposite of big is little. So the opposite of big is little. So now we're going to look at a sentence, right? And we're going to, or let's say before we go on to before we go on to this, let us identify a few words that have opposite meanings, right? So we said antonyms are words with the opposite meanings. So you have a word and then an antonym is that word that has the opposite meaning of what that word means. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down a few words and then together we can identify the antonym of that word. Keeping in mind, antonyms are opposite or words that are opposite in meaning. All right. All right. So now we're going to identify the words that are opposite in meaning. We already have big, and the opposite of big is little. We can even say the opposite of big is small. It depends. Can either be little or it can be small. What is the opposite of heavy? If something is not heavy, then what is it? So opposite of heavy. All right, we're gonna come back to that. I'm gonna think of another word. Um, what is the opposite of to hide? If you don't hide something, then what are you doing? What is the opposite of bad? The opposite of bad. What is the opposite of beautiful? Dry. Wrong. What is the opposite of short? And then what is the opposite of one more word? Start. You need to find the opposite of these words. So I'm going to give you time to give me the opposite of those words, and then we are going to do it together. All right. And if we were to identify the antonyms of these words, words with opposite meaning, then the antonym of heavy, yes, it is light. Well done. Light is correct. Yes, the opposite of hide, not finding, but to show. So it's either I show something or you hiding something. So it's either you're hiding something or you're showing something. The opposite of bad is good. Yes, good is correct. So well done. Good is correct. Light we have hide and show. The opposite of beautiful. Yes, it is ugly. So ugly. And we're not even going to talk about appearance. Let's just talk about beautiful or ugliness in behavior and attitude. Let's talk about that. Yes, the opposite of dry is wet. Or the opposite of wet is dry. Yes, the opposite of wrong is right. Right is correct. Well done. Yes, and short, tall. Well done. And then the last one, what is the antonym of start? And then start, the antonym is finish. Well done. So these are antonyms, right? On the one side, I specifically like put the one word, like one of the words in red, and the others I put in blue, right? Just to show the opposite of those words, right? Yeah, when it comes to right, you can also say, you can also say like wrong, yes, the opposite of wrong is right. But also the opposite of right, we can say is left, right? Depending on if you're using it more in direction or in this case, depending on something that someone did, right? And the same even here with heavy and light. So something is either extremely heavy, like something, an object that you can carry or lift or something. And the opposite of heavy is light, meaning it's as light as a feather. Or the opposite of light, right? It's either light or it is dark. You see, so certain words you can use in different contexts, right? We call that multiple meaning words, but that is a different topic, a different chapter. So well done. These are our antonyms. It is words with the opposite meaning. Okay, you can say start, finish. I think if we use the word end, right, then I think we rather use begin and end, right? Or start, finish, begin, end, start, end. It really depends, as long as it just shows the opposite of that word. So, yes, you can even say start and end, begin and finish. It's really up to you. But either way, that is correct because you gave me all the words that is opposite of certain words that I just mentioned. So well done. And we call that antonyms. All right, we have short and tall, short and long. We can also say long. It depends on the context in which we use it. So yes, long is also correct. So well done. Yes. And once again, we said antonyms are words with opposite meaning. All right, so now we're going to look at these three sentences, right? We are going to find the opposite of these words that I've underlined. So, which word is the antonym of thin? Which word is the antonym of thin? So, which word is the antonym of thin? The opposite of thin. What is the opposite of thin? And the opposite of thin, it's either you're thin, or we can say, yeah, we can say thick or fat, depending. And I don't think there's any form of body shaming in that. It is just us saying, giving the opposite of that word, either thin or thick or thin or fat. Well done. What is the opposite of asleep? If you're not asleep, then what? The opposite of asleep. You either asleep or you are the opposite of that word. Yes, and the opposite of asleep, if you're not asleep, then you are awake. Well done. So awake is correct. All right, and the last one says, which word is the antonym of poor? If you are not poor, then you are what? Yes, and the opposite of poor, we can either say it is rich. It's either you're rich or you're poor, or we can say you are wealthy or poor. Because remember, the rich and wealthy, that is synonyms. It means it's words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning. But the opposite of rich or wealthy is poor. So well done. You can either say rich or you can say wealthy, because that is the antonym of poor. So well done. All right, so now we're going to A plus students.ca and we're going to choose the antonym. And we're also going to say which sentence uses an antonym. All right, so we're going to choose the antonym. We already said that an antonym or antonyms are words with the opposite meaning, right? It's words with the opposite meaning. So now if we look at the little activity, right? We don't need to say what is the antonym of hate. It's either you hate someone or something, or you want someone or something. Yes, and the opposite of hate is love. Because you either hate someone or something, or if it's the opposite of hate, then it means that you love someone or something. That's the opposite. All right. All right. Let's go to our test. We need to choose the antonym. Which word is the antonym of unusual? Like, this is so unusual. The opposite of unusual, is it common, option one, or lazy, option two? All right. And if we were to identify the antonym of unusual, then yes, it is common. Well done. Common is correct. What is the antonym of ugly? Is it pretty, option one, or strange, option two? All right. And then if we were to choose the antonym of ugly, then yes, it is pretty or it is beautiful. So pretty it is. What is the antonym of poor? Is it option one, unlucky, or option two, rich? All right. And the antonym of poor, the opposite of poor, is rich. Well done. Rich is correct. Rich or wealthy. Well done. What is the word that's the antonym of tell? It's either I tell you something, the opposite of tell, is it ask or is it about? Ask or about. the opposite of tell? All right, the opposite of tell is to ask. See that I'm telling you something? Or in the opposite is I'm asking you something. We have 12 more minutes. What is the opposite of a weak? Is it option one, strong, or option two, small? Weak. All right, and the opposite of weak is strong. Well done. All right, let's look at the last one. What is the opposite of tiny? Tiny. Yes, and the opposite of tiny is huge. Well done. All right, so we now need to say which sentence, right, uses an antonym. So, which sentence uses an antonym? It says, the sheriff had a frown on his face as he rode away on his horse. So, frown. What is the opposite of frown? All right. So, frown. What do you think is the opposite of frown? If somebody is frowning, like it's like the way they pull their face. Frown. So the opposite of frown, right, is smile. Because frown, it looks almost like you're angry, but smile, right, it's like you're lightening up your face. So smile is the opposite of frown, right? What is the, it says here, the towel that I brought to the beach is wet now. What is the opposite of wet? The opposite of wet. The opposite of wet. And the opposite of wet is dry. Well done. All right, so now let's go to our test and then we end our lesson. All right, so 5 minutes for the test and then we end our lesson. All right, so now it says Rona hopes to receive many cards on Valentine's Day this year. So, receive, what is the opposite of receive? Is it to make, option one? I'm not going to read the whole sentence. Or send, option two. All right, and the opposite of receive, so Rona hopes to receive many cards on Valentine's Day. The opposite of receive is to send. So it's either you receive letters or you send letters. It's either you receive money or you send or give money. So well done. Option two is correct. The next one says, the cupboards in Mrs. Brady's kitchen are quite messy inside. So messy. What is the opposite of messy? Is it option one, damp, or option two, neat? We need to choose the correct one. Messy or damp or neat. All right, and the opposite of messy, right, is neat. Messy, it's like when things are all over the show, like you just throw the bowls and the stuff in the cupboard. But then the opposite of messy is neat. It's neatly packed. So well done. All right, the sheriff had a smile on his face as he rode away on his horse. The opposite of smile. If you don't smile, is it option one, you frown, or option 2, mask? Which one is correct? All right. And the opposite of smile is frown. Opposite of frown is smile. Well done. All right. Mr. Ramsey likes to exercise downstairs. So the opposite of downstairs, is it option 1, often, or is it option 2, upstairs? So the opposite of downstairs, is it often, option 1, or upstairs, option 2? Yes, and the opposite of downstairs is upstairs. Well done. All right, the last one. It says, do you hate pumpkin pie like I do? Hate. What is the opposite of hate? Is it option 1, love, or option 2, sell? All right, and the opposite of hate. If you don't hate something, you love something. Option 1. Well done. And that is basically it. So that is now the end of our lesson on antonyms. We said antonyms are words that have the opposite meaning of what a specific word means, right? And we went over a few words that are antonyms, and we also had to say which sentences uses an antonym. All right, so this is the end of our lesson on antonyms. Thank you very much, everybody, for interacting. Thank you for joining the class, and I really hope that you're going to have a good evening further. So until next time, goodbye.